What's going on, guys? Today we are going to be doing a kettlebell roundup, and as you can see, we put multiple kettlebells to the test over the last few months. I've swung my heart out, and we're going to dive into the best kettlebells for a variety of topics. So now let's start. As you can see, we've put a ton of different companies' kettlebells to the test. And I'm not to toot my own horn, but I think my swing and kettlebell movements have gotten pretty precise over the last couple months. We put companies like Rogue Fitness, Aider, Kettlebell Kings, Yes for All, Amazon Basics on it. The list goes on. We've tried them all. We've pulled the best perks of each kettlebell, and we've lumped them into categories accordingly for where they'd be best. For example, we put the best competition kettlebells in a group. We did the best for small hands, best for home gyms, best for CrossFit. The list goes on. If you're looking for a kettlebell for a specific purpose, we probably have the category for you. On top of all those categories, we've each pulled construction callouts for each kettlebell. So while kettlebells are relatively simple in design, I get it, it's just a handle with a ball in the bottom, there are specifics to each kettlebell that make them unique. And for those who are going to invest their own money and buy their own kettlebell, you might as well know everything you can about the bell itself. So in this roundup, you're not only going to learn which kettlebells are best for which setting, you're going to learn what's the difference in handles, what's the difference between competition dimensions, what's the difference between the chalk taking and not taking on the handle. When finding your perfect kettlebell, it's going to be a match made in heaven based on the unique features each bell offers. And so we're going to cover all of that, so now let's get swinging. While I got you here with my full kettlebell family, we're going to talk handles now. We're going to talk differences in handles first, and then we'll talk about the differences in their dimensions and how they respond to chalk. To overview our handle talk, let's talk differences first. We have steel handles up here, which are fully steel. They're a little bit smoother. You can see that they're a little bit shinier. You have powder coats over here. They're a little bit more gritty. They're meant to really hold chalk well. You have the in-between of the handle that's made out of iron but smoothed down. It's going to be kind of a hybrid feeling between the powder coat and the steel handle. You have enamel finishes, and you have handles like this that are made with a rust-resistant coating. All of these are going to respond a little bit differently to chalk. So now let's dive into how the chalk actually takes on the handles. Now that we've talked differences in kettlebell handles, let's talk about how the differences will vary with chalk performance. Every handle will be enhanced with some form of chalk. The chalk's going to limit your hand from sweating. It's going to fill the grits and kind of give you more of that like grippier, grittier texture. That's not to say any handle is going to perform poorly with chalk, but the handles will perform a little bit differently. Things like powder coats, unfinished irons, and kind of the grittier handles are going to respond a little bit better. I always compare them kind of to that barbell and new knurling feeling. They kind of lock into the hand and they don't rotate as much. Then you have things like steel, enamel, the rust-resistant coatings. They're a little bit smoother. They're going to respond to chalk well, but they are going to have a little bit more of the friction just because they're going to rotate in the hand a little bit quicker. So when you apply chalk on powder coats, it really digs in. It's really gripped in. You feel locked into that bell. And then on steels, it's a little bit smoother. So that makes the bell rotate a little bit better. But again, that's going to increase the friction in the hand just simply due to the rotation of it and how it actually moves a little bit easier. All that being said, every handle is going to take chalk to some degree. It's just a matter of how well it takes. Things like powder coats, unfinished irons will tend to grip a little bit better. Steels, enamels, rust-resistant coatings that are made a little bit smoother, they're going to have a little bit of a less of enhancement on the chalk. So outside of handle differences and how each handle responds to chalk, one of the last important considerations to take into account are the dimensions of the handle. We're going to talk about 3 different dimensions because they usually stay pretty true across all the brands we've tried. We're going to talk about competition, the in-between, and then the thicker handles. So competition kettlebells such as the Kettlebell Kings, the Rogue, the Aider kettlebell, they're going to be 33 millimeters in diameter. That's going to be the smallest handle, and that's consistent across the board because when you're competing in kettlebell competitions, they have to be regulation size, so 33 millimeters tends to be the handle diameter. Next, we'll move to the hybrid. And so instead of shouting numbers at you because they will vary a little bit between all the kettlebells, I'm going to give you a visual reference. My hand is 8 inches long, and if I put it on the competition kettlebell and wrap it, you can see that my finger touches the meat of the thumb. Now if we move to the hybrid model, so the model in between the thicker handles and the competition, such as this Rogue powder coat, you can see that there's a little bit of space, maybe a little bit less than a centimeter. And then if we move to the thicker models like the Yes for All kettlebell, you can see that there's about an inch of space in between. So that being taken into consideration, those are going to be the 3 different sizes you'll usually see on a kettlebell. The competition is the skinniest, the hybrid models will be in between, and then the thicker models such as the Yes for All. If you have a bigger hand, then you might want to go for a bigger handle. Vice versa, for the smaller hands, you might want to go for a hybrid or competition kettlebell. But that's going to come down to personal preference. My advice is try a couple different kettlebells, measure out your hand. If you need reference, you can size up my hand and then compare what you might think you would be. And I think if you take that with the kettlebell difference in handle and how it responds to chalk, you're going to be pretty set on finding the perfect handle for your needs. The next characteristic we're going to talk about the kettlebell is how the bottom is finished. And before you roll your eyes and say, aren't they all the same? No, there's actually 2 differences. One is a flat bottom finish, and then the other is everything that's not. So the flat bottom finish is usually going to have that nice machine bottom finish. It's going to be gravity cast. It's going to sit very firmly on the floor. It's going to be very stable. Then you have kettlebells like this that aren't fully flat on the bottom, or they have these rubber coatings that make them a little bit off. And that's an issue for when you're working out on harder surfaces and you don't want the bell to continually topple over, because that could actually nick up the handle when it actually goes and tips over and hits the ground. And if you want to see a performance test, let's watch how a flat bottom and then an uneven surface compare. The flat bottom pretty much stomps on the ground while this one topples around. And again, it's not the hugest issue, but it is something to consider when you're looking for full stability in a kettlebell. If you have something that's going to be prone to tipping over, it's going to be a little bit more varied in how it bounces and how much it tips over, which could chip the bell in the long run. That all being said, if you want a stable bell, go flat bottom. If you don't really care, then it's kind of up for your own discretion. So now let's talk about 2 of the main types of kettlebells. We're going to talk about iron and cast iron kettlebells and steel kettlebells. There are going to be some variations in between, but for our roundup, we only included these 2 types. So that all being said, we're going to look at durability within each and then kind of terms to look for that suggest durability. So terms to look for that suggest durability are single casting. Single casting means that the steel or iron is made out of one solid piece. There are no additional rubber inserts or welded on handles for that matter. And then look for gravity casting. Gravity casting is a way of casting a kettlebell that ensures that it's going to be consistent all the way around and that it's going to be even. There's not going to be any uneven surfaces, and gravity casting generally means that it is a single cast piece of metal. So whether you're looking for iron or steel, something to keep in mind is look for single casting. That's usually a good suggestion of durability. And anytime you see gravity casting, you can be ensured that the bell is going to have a consistent finish. If you're going to be shopping around for steel or iron, also look for welded on handles because those could break down a little bit earlier. All right, let's talk best reviewed kettlebell. These 3 kettlebells are my absolute favorite of our reviewed. We have the Kettlebell Kings, the Rogue Fitness, and the Rep Fitness kettlebell. If you look, all these kettlebells look extremely similar. That's because they're all single cast, gravity cast iron. I think that's a very good suggestion of durability. I like that they all have the green rings, which indicate 24 kilograms or 53 pounds. And then lastly, I love the powder coatings. I think powder coating is great for both chalk and non-chalk use. I think it's going to last a while. If I have to pick an absolute winner, I have to go with Kettlebell Kings, solely because they have the lifetime warranty, and with that you can be ensured that if you're going to invest in a kettlebell, it's going to last you a long time, and for me that earns me their top spot. Okay, so best kettlebell for home gym. In reality, almost any kettlebell can benefit your home gym, but my 3 choices are based off of one criteria, and that is how does it work on multiple surfaces, including if you were inside of your own home, like let's say on a carpet or like a hardwood floor. That being said, my 3 top choices all have rubber coatings. We have the Spry bell, the Yes for All, and the Rogue rubber coated bell. These bells all have a thicker coating. The Spry and Yes for All are a little bit thicker compared to the Rogue, which has a coating that sits kind of level with the handle. These actually project off. I chose these because they're gonna take less impact on the ground. If I had to choose a top spot, I would take the Rogue Fitness solely because it has that nice machine bottom finish. It's going to sit flat while also having that softer rubber texture. Best competition kettlebell. First, we have the Kettlebell King Steel Standard Kettlebell. We have the Aider Performance Kettlebell, and then we have the Rogue Fitness Competition Kettlebell. All these kettlebells are going to be very consistent in size. For competition, kettlebell handles need to be 33 millimeters in diameter, 123 in handle width, 140 base diameter, 208 in bell width, and then 282 millimeters in height. That all being said, these are all very consistent with each other. One thing about the Rogue is it has these 4 indents on the outside. That could be a perk for some, But to keep consistent with most other competition kettlebells and durability, my top spot is the Aider competition kettlebell. I think this is a very solid bell. It's very durable. It's one single piece of steel, so it earns my top spot. So now the best kettlebells for beginners. Of these three, we have the TRX kettlebell, the Onnit kettlebell, and the Amazon Basics kettlebell. And every kettlebell could necessarily benefit a beginner, but I chose these three simply because of the differences in their handle materials. We have the kind of unfinished iron, almost powder coat finish here on the the TRX bell. We have the in-between rust resistant coat on the Onnit kettlebell, and then we have the enamel finish on the Amazon. The enamel is going to be the smoothest, the unfinished iron is going to be the most rigid, and then the in-between is the Onnit with the rust resistant coat. This bell is very consistently made. I think it's very durable, and I think it's going to benefit most athletes. So that being said, I chose Onnit as my number one because the handle will benefit multiple hand types, whether you're a beginner or kettlebell veteran. All right, the best kettlebell brand. So I have my three picks, and these include Rogue Fitness, Kettlebell Kings, and Kettlebells USA. All of these three bells here, this one's the Rogue Fitness powder coat, we have the Kettlebell Kings powder coat, and then we have the Kettlebells USA Metrics Classic E-Coat kettlebell. These are all single cast, gravity cast iron bells, so they're all gonna be very durable, and they're all gonna be very solid bells. But if I had to choose my absolute top pick, I think I'd go with the Rogue Fitness powder coat bell. I like the way this handle feels a little bit better. I like that they have a green ring similar to Kettlebell Kings, but I'm choosing Rogue Fitness over the Kettlebell Kings solely for the fact that the handle feels a little bit better, and I think the powder coating is a little bit grittier with chalk. Okay, best kettlebell for CrossFit. To find these three kettlebells, I look for two characteristics. We have the Kettlebell Kings powder coat, the Rep Fitness powder coat, and then we have the Rogue Fitness rubber coated kettlebell. First characteristic I looked for was the handle. All these handles are powder coated, and most CrossFitters are going to be working out with chalk, and some use without chalk, but powder coats take chalk very well, so I think it's going to work well with a variety of CrossFit workouts. And then next I looked for flat bottom finishes. All of these kettlebells have a flat bottom finish, so they're going to sit down very flat. So CrossFitter is going to be working through a workout and needing to do a different movement after a different movement. The kettlebell is going to sit down flat. They're not going to have to worry about the bell bouncing and rolling around. If I had to pick a top spot for CrossFit workouts, I would have to say Kettlebell Kings solely because they have the lifetime warranty. So if you're investing in a gym or you're investing in your own kettlebell, it's going to last you a while. You're not going to have to worry about breaking down. If you're worried about long duration use and having your wrist get beat up, then I would say look towards the Rogue Fitness rubber coated kettlebell. All right, the best kettlebell for the money. The best kettlebell for the money. I have the Amazon Basics that comes in at $62. We have the Onnit kettlebell that comes around $76, and the Spry that come around $86. If you're looking for the cheapest kettlebell in the game, then the Amazon Basics would be a good bet. All right, best kettlebell for small hands. The top three picks that I have are the Kettlebell Kings Steel Standard Kettlebell, the RKC Kettlebell, and the Aider Competition Kettlebell. The smallest handles are going to be the Aider and the Kettlebell Kings handle. That's a 33mm competition diameter. It's going to be the smallest for the smallest hands. The RKC kettlebell is a step above it. It's going to be kind of a hybrid between that thicker and smaller handle, but I thought it was pretty towards the smaller end, so it's going to comp multiple hands. If I had to choose a top pick, I choose the Kettlebell Kings Steel Standard. This kettlebell jumps in 5-pound increments, so it's going to work for a variety of fitness athletes who necessarily need that very specific weight. Also, they have a lifetime warranty, so if you're worried about investing in a kettlebell, this will be probably a good bet for long durability. Aider is a little bit more expensive. It's full steel. It's going to be long lasting, but again, it is a competition design kettlebell, so it is a little bit more niche. So if you do want this kind of handle, it's going to be a little bit more expensive. But all in all, top pick, Kettlebell Kings Steel Standard. Best kettlebell for cardio. I chose 3 different types of kettlebells for 3 different types of niches who may be looking for a different ask. I chose the Onnit kettlebell because it has a rust resistant coat. It's a little bit smoother than others on the market, and the rigidness here isn't incredibly rigid, so it's not going to tear up the wrist from repetitive bouts of snatches and cleans. I chose the Spry kettlebell because it has this thicker piece of rubber. It's going to be a little bit more forgiving on the forearm when you're doing a lot of cleans and snatches. And lastly, I chose the Rogue Competition kettlebell. And why I chose this one is, you're probably wondering, well, is it that soft? Yes and no. There are 4 rigids here on the outside, and I thought that was really unique, especially for having it lay flat on the wrist. So if I had to choose a top pick out of this, I think I'd have to go with the Rogue Competition Kettlebell. I really like these flat surfaces here, and I thought it made it very easy to use over long durations, and it didn't beat up the wrist incredibly bad. Close second would be the Spry. The rubber coat definitely helps with some of the impact, and then last would be the On It. That concludes my best kettlebell roundup. I've spent the last couple months working out with all of these bells, becoming one with the bell, and now I'm taking a rest. To read my full thoughts and the full roundup, visit us at barbend.com or search Best Kettlebells and BarBend. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel below if you want to see more review and training related content.